Hey, what is up, everybody? It is Uncle Mad. We're here live, as we always are, on a Friday night. Thank you for joining us. If you're here with us now, we have got some stuff to talk about this weekend because we've got the home opener for the Tennessee Titans coming up on Sunday. Have a few other things we'll chat about here, as we tend to do on Friday nights, but the Titans kind of take the main focus here this week because Nashville SC is like on a weird, 3-month layoff. I don't even know when the last time Nashville SC played a match is. They may never play again. We don't know. There's no way of knowing when Nashville SC will ever play a match again. But, today we are here talking about the Titans game against the San Diego Superchargers. They'll always be San Diego to me. I don't even think LA wants them. I mean, Ryan Tannehill called them San Diego this week. I mean, I gotta think that's gotta be a dig, like a knife into the belly of the San Diego fans that got left behind to hear every team ever constantly always be calling the Chargers the San Diego Chargers. Like they left them behind, and people constantly have to hear them still be called San Diego, even though they're in Los Angeles now. So it's got to be an extra kick in the teeth to the San Diego fans that got left behind there. I can only imagine what it would be like if the Titans were going to put on Houston Oilers uniforms and celebrate their heritage as the former Houston Oilers franchise. Oh, wait. I think that's happening. Yeah, I know it's LA Chargers. I was making a joke there because everybody still calls them San Diego, even Ryan Tannehill this week. So I'll call them San Diego forever. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to switch that in my brain until they I don't know, win a Super Bowl or develop an actual fan base in LA or something like that. But they'll always be San Diego to me. It's going to be an interesting game, man, because the first game against the Saints for the Titans was just so bad. And I've had time to reflect on it. I've listened to people that are much smarter than me give their thoughts on the game. And I think I was probably too hard on Tim Kelly and the offensive scheme and not hard enough on Ryan Tannehill because looking back on it, Ryan Tannehill was absolutely horrible in that game. And I was critical that we didn't run enough plays to get receivers open, design plays to get receivers open. And looking back, we did. It was just Tannehill missed them so badly. I almost didn't even notice that we had open receivers because he was just missing so badly. So I was maybe wrong to be as critical as I was of Tim Kelly. But Tannehill, man, that is it's concerning. But I mean, statistically, it is the worst game he's played in his entire career, not just Titans career, but dating back to Miami. I was actually looking through his stats today, and I was surprised he had some really good years for Miami for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just it was just a blank space in my brain. I just felt like he was injured every year in Miami and never really did anything. But he actually had 2 4,000-yard passing seasons and a couple more 3,000-yard passing seasons in Miami, and I was like, wow. So he's it's one of those things where it's it's a blank space. We because we're not a heavy passing team, we don't think about the quality he has, what he's done, and I think the Cincinnati game has obviously colored some of the view of him. The playoff game where he threw 3 interceptions. But yesterday was far and away clearly an outlier. Last Sunday was clearly a far and away outlier. Unusual performance to be that bad for him. So I think the hope for, us as Titans fans has to be is that's all it was just an outlier. Maybe there were some, extenuating circumstances, all new offensive line, new offensive coordinator, a lot of new weapons in the skill positions. And so maybe just it wasn't all gelled together yet, which would beg the question, and I've harped on this. A lot of people are starting to harp on this. Why aren't we playing our players more in preseason? It's one thing, when you've got you're returning a lot of starters, when you've got the same system, you've got a veteran quarterback who's proven themselves. Nobody would question Tom Brady not playing in preseason. Nobody would question Patrick Mahomes not playing in preseason. Nobody would question, those level players. But I mean, when you've got basically an entirely new offensive line, basically, even with Treylon Burks coming back, he missed a lot of last season. So you've got almost an entirely new, receiving core. And even when Treylon Burks was healthy, Tannehill was out. So there was no rhythm, no chemistry there. You're integrating Tajay Spears into the mix. You've got an all new offensive system under Tim Kelly. Why wouldn't you like at least do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 series across the preseason to try to like kick off the rust, get a little bit of rhythm going? Because you know we've had like 3 straight flat, terrible starts this season. Last year, the Giants came into Nissan Stadium, beat us. We were flat. We sucked. 2 years ago, the horrible game against the Cardinals where Chandler Jones ended Taylor Lewan's career 2 years before it ended, although he claims he's not retired, that he's still going to come back and potentially play at some point in time. But I don't know, man. You seen that guy lately? He does not look like he's built to play left tackle right now. So maybe he's going to take the season off, get himself all the way back healthy, and try to come back somewhere next year. I don't know. We'll see. Side note. That's completely a side note thing. But obviously, we've started flat, 3, maybe 4 years in a row in the first game and looked terrible. It's almost like a locked-in bet next year. If we do the same crap, we don't play anybody preseason, I'm going to lock in betting against the Titans week 1 because we've sucked like 3 straight week 1s in a row. And that's what you got to hope. You got to hope it's just that we just have like that flat start, needing to find the chemistry, needing to find the rhythm of the offense. When I say we, I mean Tannehill specifically, because the other option is he's broken. A lot of people were pointing out that he was like bailing out of clean pockets, even when he wasn't getting pressured. Like he's getting happy feet. The term "seeing ghost" was being brought up by some people discussing Tannehill's performance this week, and that is not what you want out of your quarterback. Look at what happened to Sam Darnold in New York. Once he was seeing ghost, and ESPN flat out like exposed him for saying that he was seeing ghost, that didn't help him out any. But once you got those happy feet, once you're shaky in the pocket, once you're like got that giddiness, it's hard to overcome that. There's not many quarterbacks that you can go through the history of the NFL where once they kind of go that way, once they kind of lose that step, once they kind of get to that point where they're shaky and not having that confidence, not many come back from it. I always think of like, Jake Delhomme. This might date me because this doesn't feel that long ago to me, but like younger people will be like, who the heck is Jake Delhomme? Jake Delhomme took the Panthers to a Super Bowl, one of the ones that went head-to-head with the Patriots back then. Looked great. Looked like he was going to set the Panthers up for greatness, and then just like next season or two later, just went off a cliff, just like threw like 30 interceptions, just could not find his rhythm, could not find anything. I think, in other sports like golf, baseball, you'd call it having the yips, and just once he got there, he never could come back. Matt Schaub kind of had that at one point in time in his career where he was like a Pro Bowl level quarterback and then just all of a sudden went off a cliff. We see it with Russell Wilson right now. Russell Wilson, 2 seasons ago, people were talking about how is it that Russell Wilson's never won an NFL MVP, and now he's 2 years in a row looking like the worst quarterback in the NFL borderline, and didn't look great this last week either. Is there any other examples? I had one other in my brain that I was thinking of. I mean, Derek Carr, who we just played, his older brother, David Carr, first overall draft pick, all the tools to be a great NFL quarterback, comes into Houston as an expansion franchise. They have a terrible offensive line. He gets just destroyed the same way Tannehill got destroyed behind a terrible offensive line last year. He develops happy feet. He just never gets into rhythm again, never can feel comfortable in the pocket, never can trust like anything in the pocket, and his NFL career ends prematurely. And weirdly, he never gets talked about like it's like one of the biggest all-time like draft busts. He was like first overall pick, supposed to be like the linchpin of the new Houston Texans franchise, and just washed out in like 4 or 5 years. And nobody talks about him the way they talk about like Jamarcus Russell or Johnny Manziel or Ryan Leaf. But he's got to be one of the biggest busts of all time, right? I don't know. It's a side tangent. But this goes to show those are examples of guys where, once your quarterback loses that thing, that confidence, that timing, that rhythm, that, synergy, once it goes, it rarely ever comes back. You don't see it come back. So I think we just have to hope as Titans fans that it was a one-off for Tannehill, that it's just a lot of the newness around him, the new offensive line, the new offensive coordinator, the new weapons, that there's not having all played together, not all having that rhythm, weren't all synced up. I think that's what we got to hope for there. One of the weird things about the game was the lack of usage of Derrick Henry. And this is almost like a be careful what you ask for type situation where, basically since the inception of the Titans franchise here in Nashville, we've wanted them to be a more passing, more, attacking, passing type team. And they've always been a, exotic smash mouth, run the ball team. The first game where we like really kind of look more almost like we're trying to be a modern NFL team and throw and have like designed routes and modern passing concepts. We come out of it feeling like maybe we should have given the ball to Derrick Henry like 10 more times. Because that just, especially the second half where it was clear that Tannehill was off. And it wasn't off enough that we were out of the game because I think we had a lead for a long stretch of the second half. So it was almost like perfect setup to just like get the ball in Derrick Henry's hands, let him grind the game out, let him run the clock down, drive some stuff down. But it's one of those, it's like, it's what we wanted. We wanted to be a more pass heavy team. We wanted to be a more diverse, more balanced offense. But weirdly, we finally get it. And it felt like maybe, just maybe, it should have just been a heavy dose of Derrick Henry again. But I don't know. There's also been some people who've said like maybe there was just, it's a devised plan that now that we have Tajay Spear, now that we hopefully can throw the ball more with the weapons we have on offense, that maybe the game plan is to, save Derrick Henry so he's not as worn down late in the season as he maybe has been in some other years. I don't know, man. We just like I said, we're on a track record now with the Titans where we're just going to be terrible week one every single season. It seems like we're just going to be out of sync, out of rhythm, out of a funk, and hopefully that's just it. Hopefully it's a 1 week thing. Hopefully Tannehill basically said burn the tape. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm ready to focus on San Diego, and hopefully that's not just like a generic speak. Hopefully he's like ready to actually learn, actually see what went wrong, actually figure out what went wrong there. But looking at the game Sunday, it's there's a concern to be had because we've got DeAndre Hopkins hasn't practiced all week, suffered an ankle injury on the very last play, offensive play of the game, apparently against New Orleans. He's speaking like he's planning on playing. He said he's preparing to play even though he hasn't practiced all week. So we'll see what happens there. I feel like we're just living in a smash the can. Time is a flat circle. We signed a veteran wide receiver who's had injury issues, but we hope maybe they're going to find the fountain of youth in Nashville and come back to life as a Titan. They show flashes and then get hurt and never do anything. But maybe that's not Hopkins. Maybe, he seems like very motivated. He seems like, the way he's talking to the media, the way he's active seems a lot different than what we saw out of like Julio Jones, who definitely just seemed like he was coasting and here for a paycheck. Robert Woods acted like it was everybody's fault but his that nothing went right last year, which to his credit, he was playing in a Todd Downing offense, so I can only blame him so much, but he definitely never seemed like he had that much motivation or accountability that he wasn't playing well. Hopkins seems different. So like, he was talking to the media today, acting as though he's preparing to play. We'll see. Obviously, not practicing all week, a receiver on an ankle injury doesn't seem like a good sign that he could potentially play, but who knows? We'll see come Sunday or even tomorrow if they make a final designation tomorrow. But I mean, it's the injuries already again for this Titans team. We go into tomorrow. It was officially announced today that Kristian Fulton, Armani Hooker are both out for the game Sunday. So 2 out of our 4 starting defensive backs already out week 2. And Hooker gets a lot of credit because he plays so hard and he works so hard and he does so many big plays when he plays. And Fulton gets kind of crapped on a little bit, including by me in the last video talking about the Titans. But I mean, Hooker's getting right there with Fulton where he's missing as many games as anybody. I mean, it's same crap, different season already. Half our defensive back. And you could even argue more because Caleb Farley's still out from last year with the injury. So not a great time for that. You got freaking Justin Herbert, Quentin Johnson, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. There's another guy I'm sure who's great that they've got there, like a very potent passing attack coming into town right when our secondary is beat to heck. And Austin Eckler is going to be out for them, which I almost think that's like a benefit to them because that's going to force them to throw the ball more, which I think is going to be where they can succeed. Our best hope is, our pass rush looked incredible against New Orleans. Arden Key, huge impact already, huge signing. Danico Autry looks healthy, back to this form we saw of him 2 years ago. Big Jeff obviously is dominating stuff. Harold Landry's back, but he's not up to his old form yet. He looked a little slow, a little off the ball, but it's going to be a progression for him coming back to full speed. And the more Arden Key does, the more Autry does, the more Simmons does, the more that's going to shift where the pass blocking has to go. The more that's going to open things up for Harold Landry. So that's going to be, to me, the biggest key to the game is, can we get pressure on Herbert? Can we stop him from just being able to pick us apart? I'm not a huge believer in him. Like, I think he's got all the talent in the world. Like, would I trade Tannehill for Justin Herbert right now? Yes. But I've always just thought there's something weird about him. Like, he got overhyped too quickly by like the media. And he's got that, like, I always compare him. I don't know if it's because they both went to Oregon or what the deal is, but like he's got a similar vibe to me to Mariota, where it's like he can do anything, he can do all the things, but like, does he really want to? When push comes to shove, when it's tough times, is he like able to push through? And like, I feel like I'm signing my own death warrant by saying these things right now because he'll probably go out and throw for like 600 yards against the Titans and like 20 touchdowns. But he's just, there's just something that's always been off about him where he came in, he got so hyped. People were putting him in the same level as like Mahomes and Burrow and Josh Allen. And I was like, really? And maybe it's because he's stuck with like what I think is a terrible coaching situation out in San Diego. I think their coach is an idiot. They obviously fired their offensive coordinator from last year because he was an idiot. They brought in the guy from Dallas who was supposed to be like the heir apparent down in Dallas, but he got ran out of Dallas. So how good can he be? Kellen Moore. It's definitely a weird situation. I said what we probably should have done in the second half against New Orleans was let Henry have the ball, grind it out. And I think that's what this is going to have to be in this game because I don't want Tannehill to have to do a whole lot in this game. Like, the more he's going to have to do, the more pressure he's going to have to feel, the more likely he is to be forcing things the way he kind of was against New Orleans. Put the ball in Derrick Henry's hand. Put the ball in Tyjae Spears' hands. Drop some screens. Drop some bubble screens, some quick screens to Spears, quick screens to Chig. Easy throws, easy passes that Ryan can make easily. Grind the clock with Derrick Henry. Grind the clock with Tyjae Spears. Run the ball. Keep time of possession down. Keep that potent Chargers offense off the field. That's the way I can see the Titans winning this game. But I see as like a really, 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 really long shot because I'm just terrified with half our secondary out injured of facing that passing attack, especially because I've crapped all over Justin Herbert for the better part of the last 2 years. So he's due to come in and just destroy the Titans and shove it in my face. And also just like the Chargers, I feel like in the entire history of the Titans franchise, no team has beaten us more than the Chargers. Like I don't know if it would be win percentage or total wins or our losing percentage, but it feels to me like we have had less success against the Chargers than any other team in the entire NFL. I'm going to go out on a limb. My prediction, I don't think it's going to be a good day for the Titans. Game score, game prediction. Also, and I forgot to mention this, with their defense isn't that good, but our offense isn't good. Like if we'd gone out and like moved the ball well, like if Tannehill hadn't looked like a complete idiot against New Orleans, I'd be like, this could be a shootout. This could be a back and forth game. But like I'm seeing Tannehill in the pocket and he's looking across that sideline. He sees Joey Bosa, although Joey Bosa is questionable. So, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays. And Khalil Mack, who's older but still has something in the tank, I'm sure. Like he's looking across the field at them and he's already thinking he's getting hit before he even snaps the ball. That's getting in his head. That's not a good thing. I'm going to say score prediction 35-20 Chargers. Hate to do it. Hate to pick against my team, but I'm trying to be realistic. I'm trying to be honest. I'm trying to, look at it with, out my two-tone blue glasses on. That's I have a hard time seeing our banged up secondary slowing their passing attack down. I have a hard time seeing our offense doing enough to keep up with them. 35-20 Chargers. And the real scary thing about like if Tannehill is broken, if he really is washed, we know, I think we're pretty confident Malik Willis isn't ready to go. Levis missing all the preseason and not getting enough snaps, not getting enough experience to be, it could go bad really quickly for this Titans team, which sucks. Like, I know everybody's giving the Jets all the attention because, Rodgers goes down and they've got such a stacked roster. I wouldn't say we have a stacked roster, but I mean, realistically, this is one of the better rosters I feel like we've had in the last 3-4 years. Like last year's roster compared to this year's roster is night and day. I mean, Ajier, the new middle linebacker, who's all over the place in the last game. He's awesome. Arden Key, like I mentioned. If Hopkins is even 80% of what he's been in his career, he's a huge upgrade over what we had last year. If Burks can There's a lot of ifs, though. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like I think the roster is better than it has been, but there's a lot of ifs. But if you have like a really good roster, I don't know, really good's probably a stretch, but if you got a good roster, competitive roster, but your quarterback is broken and can't do anything, and you've got two essential rookies that aren't ready for NFL football, you're going to be in a bad spot. So, and I'm kind of worried that's where the Titans are, but we'll see. We'll see. Very hopeful that it was an outlier for Tannehill, that he gets it together this week, and that it's a more better showing. I'll be at the game, so there'll be a game day vlog coming from the Titans game. So if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel with the bell turned on for notifications. So you see that. You'll get to see if things go the way I think they're going to go. You're going to see my pain and misery right there in that video. So if you're one of those sickos who like to see people just sad and depressed, tune in for that one. One of my first videos that really popped off was the 2020 season. The Baltimore Ravens came into Nashville, beat us in the playoffs, and the Ravens fans had a field day in the comments, had a field day viewing that one, and people like that. People like seeing people sad and beat down and depressed about their sport team. So stay tuned for that, because you're probably going to get to see it. That'll come out Monday after the game Sunday. So I'm going to do what I did last week. I'm going to go back through the entire NFL slate tomorrow, game by game. I'm going to give my prediction based on the spread of each game. I should have written down or like recorded what I predicted last week, because I think just like I don't remember exactly what all I picked, but I think off the top of my head, I actually did okay last week. I didn't bet every game. I just like shared what I would have bet if I was going to bet those games. I know I missed on Pittsburgh. I had Pittsburgh completely wrong. I had Cincinnati completely wrong. I thought the Giants could have been more competitive, but I don't remember exactly which way I went in terms of betting them or the spread. But they just, I mean, that was ridiculous. What a game that was. But I think most of the other games I was pretty close, pretty spot on for what I had there. So let's go through it. All right. So the first one I got listed, these are coming from DraftKings. These are the lines coming from DraftKings. Got Chargers, Titans. Chargers, 2.5-point favorite. Like I said, I just said 35-20. That's 15 points, 2.5 points. Feels like a steal. I mean, although Vrabel, he tends to not get blown out. He tends to unless it's like a really good team, like the Bills last year. And this could honestly be a mirror of last year's Bills game where we got just demolished by the Bills. But the Chargers aren't in as good a form as the Bills were coming into that game last year. So I don't know. I would definitely go Chargers 2.5 though, because I feel like they're going to win this game pretty comfortably. So I think it's not like, I don't think if Tannehill can start to fix things, he's not going to start to fix things in just a week. So I would expect that to take more time, and I don't want to go against this high-powered offense with a quarterback who's on the mend, trying to repair his broken brain or whatever's going on with Tannehill. Chiefs, Jaguars at Jacksonville. Chiefs, 3.5-point favorite. This is an interesting one. It's going to be the real test. A lot of people are really high on the Jaguars coming into the season, really got bought in after they had a decent run in the playoffs last year. A lot of people really, really getting behind them. That 3.5 to them feels like a trap to me, though. I feel like that's going to be everybody's so high on Jacksonville. Although I bet a lot of people are going to take Chiefs. I don't know. This is a weird one. I would need to see what the public money's on in this game, because I feel like the media is very hyped the Jaguars this season, and we always just kind of forget about the Chiefs. Maybe the Chiefs are a little down after that not great performance against the Lions on the Thursday night kickoff game last week. Getting Chris Jones back, I think somebody said that's the line shifted a little bit because of that. Chiefs, man. I'm a skeptic of the Jaguars. People act like they were some great team when it took a fumble that maybe wasn't a fumble, which depending on which referee crew you're looking at, that wasn't a fumble. The Josh Dobbs play at the end of the year last year to get them to the playoffs, and once they got in the playoffs, that's the thing that's kind of incredible about playoffs is once you get in, anything can happen. But I don't know. I'm still not a huge believer in the Jaguars. This is a big prove it game. This could be the game where they, prove me wrong and show that they're legit, show that they're for real. But it's one of those things. Until they prove it, I got to go against them. So I would take Chiefs minus 3.5. I wish it was like -3. That hook is a little wonky there, but I would take Chiefs minus 3.5. Seahawks and the Lions. This is an interesting one because the Lions, shocked the world, beat the Chiefs to open the season. They're the sexy pick to be the new hot team this season. Seahawks last year kind of shocked the world. Did they regress to the mean this season? Got just demolished by the Rams last week. Did the Seahawks pick back up and, rebound, get back to what we saw from them last year? Did the Lions kind of come back down to earth a little bit? I kind of lean that way. 4.5 seems like a lot for like the Lions to beat the Seahawks by, like, unless we just think the Seahawks are complete trash. Like last year, I predicted the Seahawks to be complete trash. They went on to make the playoffs and look pretty decent. Geno Smith got comeback player of the year. I think they're better than what they showed against the Rams last week, but I think the Lions got a lot of lucky breaks, or not lucky breaks, but like things broke their way in that Chiefs game with, Kadarius Toney dropping like 20 passes and everything else. 4.5 feels like too big. I'm not ready to like. I'm more into the Lions than I was coming into the season after they beat the Chiefs, but 4.5 over a playoff team from last year seems still a little high for the Lions. So I'd probably go Seahawks plus 4.5 there. Raiders, Bills. The question you got to ask yourself here. So it's a 8.5 point favorite for the Bills. Do you think the Bills are regressing? Do you think what we saw last week is going to continue, where Josh Allen, very, Tannehill-esque, like trying to force plays, trying to make things happen? A little more just not like yips, not like, seeing ghosts. It was more just like he tries to make plays that aren't there. He really just wants to make a play on every single play, and like sometimes loses his composure and ends up throwing like way too many interceptions and losing a game they definitely shouldn't lose against the Jets when they had lost Aaron Rodgers. So do you think the Bills come back out angry and want to prove a point and really kind of stomp on a Raiders team that I don't really know what to think about? I don't think their coach is very good, but they went out and beat the Broncos last week. And, Jimmy G's, for whatever criticisms he had, he's always been a, upper middle tier quarterback who can get things done. They've got Devontae Adams, who's, on his day, still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Got Josh Jacobs, one of the best running backs in the NFL. Yeah, Richard Greenberg said Raiders +8. That's the one I'm thinking about right now. Like, I think the question for me is, do we get to see the Bills of the past year? Like, was what we saw last week in the Jets, was that just like a weird, they're feeling a lot of pressure because they haven't quite hit the marks they should have hit, and things just went awry last week? Do they come back here? I'm kind of interested. It's kind of interesting. Like Josh Allen's like kind of resurgence, like his 2 best years came when Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator, and like almost Brian Daboll like kind of fixed him, because you go back to his first 2 years, he was a mess, like throwing all kinds of interceptions back then, looking like he wasn't going to make it. Then Daboll got a hold of him and turned him into like second best quarterback in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. Daboll goes to New York. Daboll makes Daniel Jones look like a passable quarterback. And last year, Allen was a little bit of a mess at times, threw a lot of interceptions last year. His comeback this year looks the same. I don't know. It's at Buffalo, but I read this thing that the Raiders had already traveled to the East Coast. They've been staying on the East Coast this week, so they're not going to have like a huge flip in travel. This might be the toughest one to call, because like it really, you have to decide, do you think the Bills last week, what we saw, is like really what the Bills are going to be, or do you think they're going to like rebound? Like, are they going to be angry about last week and come back out fired up? For a team that lost to the Jets with Zach Wilson at quarterback, 8.5 seems like a lot of points. I would probably take Raiders 8.5 if I was going to take anything, but this would by far be a stay away game. It's not a game I feel comfortable betting, but if I was going to bet something, I'd probably take Raiders 8.5, because I mean, after what we saw from the Bills last week, I mean, do you really think, the Raiders are 1-0, the Bills are 0-1? Do we really think the Bills, are going to come back and be 9 points better than a team that got a win last week? I don't know. I would stay away, but if I was going to bet, I'd take Raiders 8.5. Ravens and Bengals. Ravens are +3. Whew. It's going to be a good game. This is a game, if I wasn't going to the Titans game, this would be the game I'd probably have on the TV. This is a game I'd probably be watching. Once again, this comes down to like similar to Tannehill, similar to Josh Allen. Do you think Joe Burrow bounces back? He had by far his worst probably start as a pro ever last week against the Browns, but he's coming home now. He's got a week to kind of reset. Everybody's been talking about it. He's got a new haircut. Does that help things? Does the new haircut fix things for Joe Burrow? The Ravens on the offensive line and on their defense are already, much like the Titans, getting riddled by injuries, but their offense looks like it might be as explosive as ever. Zay Flowers had a big game last week, looking like he might be a huge addition for them. Finally giving a weapon to Lamar Jackson. I don't know, man. I feel like I know the Ravens have a lot of injury problems. I know. I mean, how bad the Bengals were last week. I don't know that I can trust them to completely turn it around in 1 week, especially against a team that's tough and knows them really well as the Ravens. I'd go Ravens +3. Richard Greenberg says he agrees. I agree. Staying away from the Bills game too. Yeah, that's such a huge spread for a team that's coming off such a bad loss. And the Raiders are kind of you look at them and you're like, they're not good. But we just think they're not good because they weren't good last year. But they've got to, maybe upgrade in quarterback and Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know. Stay away. It's definitely a stay away, 100%. Green Bay, Atlanta. Atlanta, 1.5 point favorite at home. I'd lean Green Bay here. Green Bay here. I think Green Bay showed a lot of people last week that I don't think it's going to be Favre to Rodgers level transition, but Jordan Love, and it was just the Bears, so maybe that colors it a little bit. But I think that the Packers are going to be right there in the mix in the NFC North again. I think they've just they've got a competent quarterback. They've got everything else they need in place around him. They're missing their best receiver in Christian Watson and still went out and just destroyed the Bears. Falcons, I'm not sold on. I love Arthur Smith, former Titans offensive coordinator. A lot of tools there, a lot of weapons there. But I mean, Desmond Ridder. Are we really expecting a team with Desmond Ridder as their quarterback to really be good? To really be like consistent? I'd go Packers +1.5 there. Bears and Buccaneers. This feels like a trap to me. This feels like a very big trap game to me because I said, like me and my buddy Kyle's season preview, I said last week, kind of going through the games last week, I'm sneaky high on the Buccaneers because I'm just never going to give up Baker Mayfield because he came into Nissan Stadium one time with the Browns, demolished the Titans, looked like the best quarterback in the NFL, went on to beat the Steelers in the playoffs that year with the Browns. And those two games alone have just locked in my brain that Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback, that if the situation's right, if the setup's right, he can succeed. He's got weapons in Tampa Bay. They went and beat Minnesota last week, kind of pretty comfortably, but now actually Minnesota kind of looks bad now, so we don't know how much that says. But I mean, the Bears were terrible last week. They got destroyed. And the Bucks, are only 2.5 point favorites. It feels like a trap to me. Like this feels like an easy, Bucks under 3, getting that under the number of 3. That feels like a steal to me, which makes me worried that it's a weird kind of trappy, fishy line. But I'm a sucker for fishy lines. I'm a sucker for what I believe in, and I've been a believer in Baker. I've been a believer in the Buccaneers. And it feels to me like they should pretty easily be able to beat the Bears. The Bears defense stinks. Justin Fields, he's their only hope to get them over the line to really get something going. I would take Bucks 2.5, but that definitely feels like a weird line. Richard in the chat, think Burrow still needs another 2 games to get in shape. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is it'd be one thing if it was a little off game, but he had his worst game ever last week against the Browns. So that's a concerning thing once again with the Titans and Tannehill is you can come back, but to go from your worst ever performance in your entire career to capable in 1 week is kind of a stretch. Those things tend to take time. Colts, Texans. Texans are a 1 point favorite over the Colts at Houston. This might be the biggest crapshoot of the day. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being a pick'em by the time the game kicks off because these teams are both kind of in the same mode where they're both rookie quarterbacks, a lot of resetting going on. Both have new coaches. I assume Houston got the 1-point favorite because it's at Houston, and maybe because there was still some question. Like, I think Anthony Richardson had like a knock at the end of the game last week against Jacksonville, but he's not on the injury report, so he's certainly expected to play. Colts look better than I thought they were going to look against the Jaguars. So that's certainly scary. Texans looked not good against the Ravens. This is a tough one. My gut says Colts. Like I feel like they looked better last week, and it's at Houston. I probably like DeMeco Ryan better as a coach than I like the Colts coach, but I'm going with the team I thought looked better last week. I thought Indianapolis looked better last week. I'd go Indy +1. I mean, that feels. It's another one. That's a weird line. Like it's a pick 'em because I would make it a pick 'em just because they're so similar. But I think Texans get the nod because they're home. But I think Indianapolis looked better last week, so I would take Indianapolis in that one +1. Or at that point in time, I just go money line Indianapolis because if you're +1, you might as well go money line. 49ers Rams. 49ers 7.5-point favorite against the Rams. I was listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about how there's like a circle of death in the NFC West where certain of the coaches out there always beat other coaches. It's just like a circle. It doesn't matter. I think it's, if I'm remembering correctly, McVay always beats Pete Carroll. Shanahan always beats McVay. And everybody always beats the Cardinals. Yeah, I think the stat was that McVay is 1-8 against Shanahan lifetime. Of course, the one win was in the NFC Championship game when the Rams went to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. So the most important win he could have got, he got. It's a 7.5-point line for the 49ers. I mean, they killed the Steelers last week, so you'd feel pretty comfortable about that. But I don't know. The Rams beat the Seahawks 30-7 last week. Stafford looks like he might have a little life back in the tank. No Cooper Kupp, though. Aaron Donald's over there, but the rest of the defense is kind of very suspect. I definitely think 49ers win this game, but I don't know. 7.5 feels like a lot of points. It's probably the other one. Like anytime you've got this many points this early in the season, it's so. I don't think there's enough we know to be able to like say any team's going to really squash another team. Because even like last week, like the Commanders were like 7-point favorites over the Cardinals, who I think everybody expects the Cardinals to be the worst team in the league. I think the Commanders ended up winning that game by like two points, 1 point, something crazy like that. So anything like with a lot of points feels like a stay away to me. Like I definitely would not bet this game at 7.5. If it was 7, I might. But at 7.5, which I have on DraftKings right here, I would lean Rams, but I wouldn't take either side. I'd probably lean Rams +7.5, but I really wouldn't take either side. But that goes against the idea that McVay always loses to, well, he could still lose, but lose by 7. So I'd probably, I don't know. That is a tough one. That might be tougher to pick than the Raiders and Bills. So at least in Bills and Raiders, at their best, the Bills are clearly a better team than the Raiders. The Rams winning against Seattle 30-7 last week has just thrown my brain out of whack because I thought the Rams were going to be very bad this season. But having a dominant performance against a team that was in the playoffs last week to start the season, it's kind of throwing my mind out of whack, but I don't know that you can really put a whole lot of stock in anything that happens the first week of the season. Man, screw it. I mean, the 49ers have looked like the best team out of the gates. Stick with them until the wheels fall off. I'd go 49ers -7.5, but I would ultimately stay away from the game, in truth. Giants, Cardinals, Giants -4, Cardinals +4. I think if the Giants hadn't gotten just completely destroyed by the Cowboys, this would have been a much larger spread. But I think like people are like probably not sure what to make of the Giants right now because they lost just so badly, like 40-0. Unbelievable. Like, I mean, that was shocking. Like it wasn't shocking that the Cowboys won convincingly, but 40-0 was absolutely insane. And the Cardinals, at least defensively, looked really solid last week against the Commanders. So you got a solid defense in Arizona against a Giants team that just got shut out. Yeesh. At Arizona. Man, that's a weird game. That is a weird game. I like Daboll as a coach, though. I feel like he's going to figure some stuff out. He's going to look at whatever went wrong against the Cowboys and come back with some solutions this week. I would take Giants -4 because I feel like they bounce back here. I feel like he rights the ship. He gets some things right and figures some stuff out. And, the Cardinals, I think there was like a lot of everybody doubts us. We got to put up our best fight. Maybe show everybody thinks we're tanking. We got to come up and fight. And they put up their best fight against the Commanders last week. And I don't know how long that's sustainable. So I would take Giants -4 there. Jets and Cowboys. I've already taken Cowboys -8.5. It's jumped to -9. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are like really hyped up on like the roster's so good. Zach Wilson's going to be inspired. He's going to have had some tutelage from Aaron Rodgers. He's going to bounce back. But I think like the Bills defense ate the Jets offense alive last week. Like, I mean, that's why Aaron Rodgers is out for the season, is because they just ran through the Jets offensive line. And now you've got Zach Wilson versus Micah Parsons and Tavon Diggs. Like Tavon Diggs, like he's a funny dude because like, he's like one of the leading interceptions. He leads the league in interceptions, but he also leads the leagues in yards given up. But I just see Zach Wilson get eaten alive by Micah Parsons, throwing up hope balls that, Diggs is going to pick off all day long. I'm out of bet. It's one of the few bets I've already locked in for the weekend. I'm on the Cowboys 8.5. It's already up to 9. Maybe it's overhyping what the Cowboys did in week 1. Maybe it's underestimating what the Jets can do without Aaron Rodgers. I think this is a blowout. I think the Cowboys will absolutely destroy the Jets. So I'm all over Cowboys. It's -9 right now on DraftKings. I've got it at -8.5. Commanders, Broncos. God. No idea. Commanders are 3.5-point favorite. I don't see a scenario where the Broncos are 3.5 points better than anybody right now. This might be another one where the Commanders not convincingly beating the Cardinals hurt them and gave them a few extra points. So here's my thought process. So sometimes in games like this where I don't have a clear idea, I look at two things. I look at who's the better quarterback, who's the better coach. Sean Payton's definitely a better coach than Ron Rivera. And the quarterbacks, I don't know. Sam Howell is an unknown second-year guy. I haven't really seen much of him yet. Russell Wilson, terrible for the last 2.5 years. There's hope that Sean Payton can revive him, but I don't know. If two bad teams are playing, I don't expect it to be a blowout on either side of the other. So I'd probably go Commanders +3.5 just because I don't know that the Broncos are good enough to blow anybody out, even another team that's not that good. So I would take the Commanders and the points there. Sunday night game, Dolphins, Patriots. I feel like the Dolphins, the Patriots have gotten a little hype because they played decently against the Eagles. But I mean, I think the Eagles are like weirdly, the team that loses the Super Bowl often has like a hangover like the next season. I think there's like some stats you can look up that the team that loses the Super Bowl is almost always bad the next season. And I think the Eagles have sneakily been not great, but they're just so talented. They've still won their first 2 games. So like, I think the Patriots, they made the Patriots look better than the Patriots actually are, which the Patriots defense is usually is pretty good. But I don't think Mac Jones is good. I don't think their offensive weapons are any good. I mean, and Dolphins like just demolished the Chargers last week. Tua is the odds-on favorite right now to be the MVP, which is crazy considering most people are like, I don't think Tua is going to play 8 games this season. Dolphins -3 feels like stealing because I feel like I guess there is a history the Dolphins don't play well in New England. But I don't know, man. I mean, coming off of what we saw last week from the two teams, I would think the Dolphins would win that game comfortably. So, and I'm just an idiot. I don't know anything about anything. So these is probably all the things where I'm saying these things, and I probably will look stupid on most of these. But I think Dolphins -3 seems easy, so that's what I would take. Monday night game, Saints, Panthers. Saints are only a 3-point favorite against the Panthers. This is another bet I already have locked in because wasn't that impressed by the Saints against the Titans, but they seem like with Derek Carr, with Chris Olave, with Michael Thomas somewhat healthy, with their defense being pretty solid, they can win against middling teams like the Titans. So he definitely should be able to win against bad teams like the Panthers. I think the Panthers stink. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year because I don't think Bryce Young is going to be able to like really lift them up on his own. They traded away like the best possible weapon he could have had to get him and DJ Moore. JC Horn, my buddy Kyle's favorite player that he's still kicking himself. The Titans weren't able to draft a couple of years ago, is out injured. I think the Panthers are going to suck. And I don't think Frank Reich's a good coach at all. I think he's an idiot. I think he got lucky to have a halfway decent quarterback for a couple of years with Andrew Luck before he ran Andrew Luck into the ground. I think with Jim Irsay slowly losing his mind, we're going to see more and more how bad a lot of the stuff that came out of the Indianapolis Colts the last like 4 or 5 years actually was. And I think Frank Reich stinks. I think the Panthers stink. I think the Saints win this game comfortably. I've already locked it in. I've already bet it. Saints -3. Go. Take it. Browns, Steelers. Now, these are two teams that I was completely on the wrong side of last week. I thought for sure the Steelers were going to be solid this year. I thought they'd put up a good fight against the 49ers. I thought Tomlin, with Pickett coming into his second year, would have the team pretty good, pretty ready to go, and they got smoked by the 49ers. I thought the Browns would not stink, but I thought they wouldn't be good. I think they had too much faith in Watson, and I think Watson probably isn't going to be what he was at his peak anymore. But like, last week they got the job done comfortably against the Bengals. Their defense was incredible. So if they're I got to go to this. Okay, so the Browns defense decimated the Bengals offense, and the Bengals offense is much better than the Steelers offense. So by transitive property, they should very cleanly dominate the Steelers offense, but Tomlin's the type of coach that would have his team bounce back off a bad performance. So I don't know. I kind of hate the Browns. I kind of hate Deshaun Watson. I don't ever want to pick them, but yeah, it definitely feels like Browns 2.5. Based on everything we saw last week, I mean, if they decimated the Bengals offense the way they did, and Steelers offense is nowhere close to the Bengals offense, Browns 2.5. I'll take Browns 2.5. All right, so that wraps up NFL. A couple quick thoughts I wanted to share on Nashville SC MLS stuff before wrapping up for the night. We're in a weird gap where like Nashville SC hasn't played in like what feels like forever. With the international break, I thought for sure we'd have a game this weekend. Like I just wasn't paying that close attention to the schedule. I knew we were off last weekend, but I was like, oh, we won't get 2 weekends off in a row. We'll come back after the international break and play this weekend. But no, we're off again tomorrow. And there was an interesting nugget on the Club and Country podcast, which is one of the, from a pure analytics, looking at the numbers, looking at the data, looking at the stats, looking at the news perspective. It's probably the best Nashville SC podcast there is from that perspective. They dropped a little nugget that I didn't know about, that MLS teams are able to request with the league which of the FIFA international windows they would like to have off from their MLS schedule. Like, because obviously the MLS plays through most FIFA windows. And so they were saying, well, this must have been the one they requested to be off because they thought maybe Zimmerman would be away on this one, but he's hurt, so he wasn't called in anyway. But it ended up being like a weird, like perfectly timed break that we needed because we played so many extra games with the League's Cup. We were in, bad form, need a break, need a rest, need a chance to kind of reset, recoup. Yeah, we needed it, but it's only once we get back on the pitch, that's going to be what really determines it. Also on Club Country USA, they were going through our main schedule, and I didn't realize actually how insane it is. We got 7 games left, and I believe 5 out of the 7 games left are against teams that are in playoff position or better. I think one of the teams that's not in playoff position right now that we have to play is Red Bull New York, who we've never beat. So that's a great matchup to be like, yeah, okay, you got 7 matches left, 5 of them are really hard, and one of the 2 that's not really hard is a team you've never been able to beat. So I'm generally like, I'm hopeful that the break gives us a chance to reset, refresh, recoup. But when they were reading down the schedule, what we got left on Club and Country USA, I was like, this stretch run is going to be insane. I've also decided I'm not going to buy into this whole oh, well, it's still going to be tough for Miami to get into the playoffs. They went out without Messi last week. Without more than just Messi, they had multiple players gone on international duty and just still smoked another team. They're winning every game. They're winning every game. They're going to make the playoffs. I bet them. This week I put in a bet. We're on a betting streak here, talking about bets. I took Miami at plus 650 to win the MLS Cup. Using the same logic I used when I bet Argentina to win the World Cup is there's just something in the air right now. Don't know what it is, but there's something in the air when it comes to Messi and winning tournaments. And until somebody stops him, you got to bet it. And that's the crazy thing about it. I think they had they were 5th or 6th best odds to win, which is insane for a team that is currently outside the playoffs. Like plus 650 to win MLS Cup for a team that is not currently in the playoff picture is absolutely insane. But had to take it because, like I said, until somebody stops Messi, you just got to keep betting him. So, I think Lionel Messi is going to be your MLS Cup champion, and he'll bring Inter Miami along with him for the fun of it. All right, I think we're going to wrap up on that. That's it for this one. Talked a lot of Titans. Stay tuned. We're going to have a vlog from the Titans game Sunday. It'll come out Monday after the game. And we'll have a lot more coming up on the channel. So, stay tuned, subscribe, turn the bell on for notifications. Appreciate everybody watching, and we will see you in the next one.